Okay, today we're repairing Ozzy's robots on YouTube, his 1960s Tetsujin No. 1. What was it? Noruma, Japan, I guess. And he couldn't get it to wind up right in his video, which I can put a link to down below. And he figured it probably had a broken spring, and he's right, it does indeed have a broken spring, but in this case he's quite lucky, and in the break in the spring is in the best possible place if you're going to have a broken spring. I would say 99 times out of 100 when the springs break in wind-up toys, it's always the center part of the spring where it attaches to the wind-up shaft in the very middle, because that's the tightest part of the metal and it's going to fatigue and break. In this case, the spring broke on the outside edge. You see this funny cut? That would fit into that slot, and the spring would normally be suspended more or less like that. And when it's broke in the middle, which like I say is almost every time, in order to get in there to fix the spring and repair anything, you have to take the entire gearbox apart. Now that doesn't mean just bending a couple of simple tabs here and waiting for these gears to drop out. No. That means you've got all of these crimped ends for these rods that go through. You're going to have to undo those. You're going to have to remove the rods because you have to get the whole side of the gearbox off so that you can get the entire spring mechanism out. So then you can decide whether you're going to try to repair the spring or replace the spring. Now, the tricky thing about spring steel that's used for springs is if I take this and try to bend this with a pair of pliers, it'll snap. It'll snap like glass as soon as you try to do a tight bend on it. So the way they do the center connections on that and other types of tight bends is you grab them with pliers or something to heat sink it. You have to use a hot torch and get the metal cherry red. Has to be cherry red, otherwise you're just going to break it again. Once it's glowing cherry red, you can then bend it and form it, and when it cools, that part of the spring will no longer be tempered. It will now be just mild steel, basically. So that's why you heat sink it, so you don't interfere with the rest of the spring. So when this was broken off at the end, I had the option of trying to grind this new fitting, that new size, into the end of the broken half of the spring, or in this case the spring was initially broken clear up here and jammed into a gear, and that's why the thing wouldn't run. I just simply worked it around and it came around and it tucked under that shaft, and I went, well, what if I just pull that forward, pull it out, heat sink it, cherry red it, put a bend on it and push it back. It'll then get captured by this front axle. So that was a much simpler and easy way to repair the damage than all the work of doing it any other way. Now we see if we have, it doesn't take a whole lot to wind it up, especially just for a demo. So it's good running, and the on-off switch basically simply jams the top. Now a lot of you may not know that in wind-up toys, your main torque normally comes off at the spring or the next gear just above it, because they want the most power. But unless you had some way to control the speed, the whole thing would unwind instantly. It would just go ring, and it would all be unwound. So they run it through, in this case, a series of 1, 2, 3 more gears to get the speed way up by the time it reaches back in here. That little part that's now spinning. Well, that little part isn't completely round. Maybe if I let it unwind enough, we can get it where you can actually see. It's going to be kind of hard to see with this handle in the way, but that part isn't round. You can see it's got a fat side and a thin side. And that counterweight, that out of balance counterweight, is what slows the whole mechanism down. It gets the RPM so high by then that it takes a lot of effort to drive all those gears that fast, and if you put something out of center, off center, a counterweight on there, then you get your speed control. Now a lot of toys will do it that way. A lot of the Flint toys also use the Flint bouncing on the Flint wheel, which would normally be geared up in here somewhere to help control the speed. Some of the other toys will put a teeter-totter, a piece of metal, against that oblong, and as the oblong goes from one side to the other, it ratchets it back and forth, and you'll hear a chattering sound, and those ones going, and they control the speed that way with a little teeter-totter balance. But that's the long and the short of it, and all the other bits are here. I hadn't decided whether I was going to go ahead and try to put it together on camera or not, but I guess I can start, and if it looks like it's going to be a problem, I can stop. So the back of the gearbox was tabbed, and I just slid that into place. Well, I was also going to mention that I noticed in his video, and I also noticed here in person, that the robot leans forward a whole lot. I mean, it doesn't stand straight up at all. Now, they did put the ratchets up in the toes and not in the heels. Most toys have them in the heels. So I think they make sure that it's leaned forward so that the front wheels will always make good contact, so the ratchets would work, would be my guess. None of the leg linkages seem to be bent. I checked that. So it's not leaning due to anything being bent. And I'm just carefully bending these tabs back so the gearbox is now held in. This isn't very heavy gauge metal, and I don't know if it would survive another taking apart or not. In order to get those tabs off, I had to remove the jet packs, so they go on next. And you have to reach in from the inside to get in there, and the factory just gave them a twist. That's why they kind of rattled around a little bit. So I will just do the same. They can't fall off, but they're not super tight. And get that one in there. It's a very common method of putting things together, is just to give them twist rather than folding them over flat, because it's much quicker on the assembly line for one thing, but it actually does work quite well. Now the arms themselves just have these tabs. In fact, here you can see the twists where they just reach in with the pliers real quick and just twist it. These basically just jam into the metal. They're not mechanically linked to anything. So you can position them wherever you want. You'll notice that the top part, the big aluminum piece there, it has been hammered and forged flat to stay with the back part. So that means the front part of the body, you can see has a slot, is going to just tab in like that and then tip forward onto the arm parts like so. Now there is a little fastener down in the crotch area, which I need to try to hit to hold things together. And again, in the factory they had just taken and given that a twist. In fact, they grabbed more than just the tab. They had grabbed the whole bottom because they didn't care what it looked like. They figured no one's going to be looking down there. But I had to look down there in order to work on it. Okay, we now have these two side pieces, and I don't recall which one goes on which side, so I'm going to hold it here and just kind of look at it. And if it doesn't fit right, I'll move it to the other side. Well, that seems to fit quite well that way. So I'm pretty sure I grabbed the right one. And there's two little tabs, if it'll focus, that I need to spread. And again, you can't give these things too many bends or they just drop off. And once they drop off, you can't really hold the toy together anymore. So you kind of have to be real careful. You don't work too fast. You don't bend too fast. Those two tabs are real close together, so I needed to get at them with a little X-Acto knife to get things started. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of a bend here. I'm going to flatten those down the rest of the way later. I want to make sure everything is going together and looking and working right. Here's the one for the other side. The deformed rubber nose is going to stay that way. That rubber is so old that I don't want to be the one to have it crack and fall off altogether. I mean, at least the nose is on there now. It's just bent. And I think a bent nose is better than no nose. So we're going to leave that alone. Really old latex rubber, which is what that one is, don't tend to normally survive at all, much less survive being pestered too much. And as Ozzy points out in his video, when it was shipped originally from the factory, there would have been a little cardboard circle that went around there, and that would have protected the nose during shipping. And along the way of the toy being played with and stuff, that got lost. Now there are some shoulder and head cap parts to be put on, but I want to make sure everything is working before I go any further. I don't want to keep bending stuff. Okay. Okay. You can see the ratchets are on the front, the rear ones are free spinning. Alright, let's work on the upper shoulder. Now they had a little ear muff to hide the upper crimp, and I purposely did not lift the ear muff any further than I needed to get to the metal tab, because it's just one more piece of metal that is going to tend to want to break off if you've moved it too much. So I'll move the tabs is only enough to get the job done. Don't ever try to bend them flat and move them. Anything that's ever been bent at a sharp angle to begin with is going to have a weak spot. If it's something with a gradual bend in it, you can usually get away with working with it more times. But sharp tabs, like on these ones on the shoulders, they were bent completely over originally, so I want to go real easy with those so that they don't drop off, and I want to go real slow, because when you bend metal fast, you actually are generating incredible amounts of heat at a micro level, and it just fatigues the metal even more. And we're just going to fold the ear back like it was when I received it. It wasn't down all the way and it wasn't straight. Put it back exactly the same, not trying to make anything any better. Cosmetically, I think the way the factory did it was probably good enough. Okay, wait a minute. Try and get maybe the ear part on first, and then the shoulder part. Some of this may or may not be on camera. I can't be watching the toy that I'm working on and looking at the viewfinder at the same time. But I do try to pause and show you where I'm at and what I'm doing. Working on these little metal tabs now. Again, just trying to slowly and carefully put them back where they'll hold the toy together. And then put the ear back down. Shoulder ones I'm going to move a little bit more. There we go. This side. And I'm going to fold these down just a little bit more. Like so. Alright. I do believe we are back together, for better or for worse. I guess it'd be for better. Let's put the on-off switch in the off position. Won't give it too many cranks here. Okay, it's going. This isn't the smoothest surface. It does have a lot of lean. Like I say, none of the leg linkages look screwed up. And so I'm thinking it's always had a little bit of lean. They wanted to make sure those front ratchets grabbed hold. And so there you have it. You can move the arm around, pose it up in the air. You can do all kinds of good stuff with it. Here's the nose bend I was talking about, and Ozzy talked about. You know, if it wasn't so old, I'd go ahead and gingerly try warming that up to see if I could straighten it. But too many times I've seen this type of latex rubber, due to the age, and you start pestering it, crack, and then you don't got no nose at all. And I think it's better to have a nose. So hope you enjoyed. Learned a little something about wind-up toys.